Pakistan's powerful army chief, Asim Munir, is now facing one of the most challenging tests of his tenure, as US President Donald Trump reportedly applies pressure on Islamabad to make critical decisions regarding military involvement abroad. Sources suggest that Washington is actively encouraging Pakistan to commit troops to a proposed Gaza stabilisation force, a move that could have major diplomatic and military implications for the country. Asim Munir is expected to make another trip to Washington in the near future, where he will meet with US officials to discuss the details and implications of President Trump's controversial plan for deploying troops in Gaza. According to Reuters, Munir is scheduled to meet President Trump at the White House no fewer than 3 times over the course of 6 months, specifically to negotiate and review Pakistan's potential involvement in the Gaza Forces initiative. The pressure from Trump comes at a time when Pakistan's army chief is actively working to mend and strengthen diplomatic and military ties between Islamabad and Washington, a relationship that has faced multiple strains in recent years. Analysts warn that if Munir decides not to participate in the US-led mission, it could be seen as a setback for Trump's foreign policy goals, potentially disappointing the US president and complicating bilateral relations further.
If the Pakistanis decline to be a part of this mission, then that might disappoint Trump, and that could be a problem for Pakistan, given that it's very clear that Asim Munir, not just Asim Munir, but I'd say the civilian and military leadership on the whole, are very keen for the U.S. to invest in Pakistan and to provide security assistance, which has largely been suspended for some time. And I think that if Pakistan declines to participate in the stabilization mission, that could disappoint Trump, and he may not. There is that risk that it could prompt him to pull back a bit and not be as inclined to work with Pakistan on some of these issues that have been discussed in recent diplomatic engagements.
Pakistan, as the world's only nuclear-armed Muslim-majority country, has drawn significant interest from the US, with its military capabilities making it a key player in regional security calculations, according to Reuters. Defense experts suggest that President Trump sees Pakistan's military as eager to engage in international missions and believes the country's armed forces are capable, highly trained, and ready for strategic deployments.
Trump is interested in Pakistan military's engagement, I think partly because Pakistan military seems willing to engage, provided there is support and cover from Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern partners are there. Trump is also happy for that engagement because he looks at Pakistan military's capability, institutional capability, and knows that they can fight.
As the chief of Pakistan's army, Asim Munir wields extraordinary authority over the country's armed forces, with powers that extend across military branches and a tenure that is expected to last until 2030. However, the plan to deploy Pakistani troops to Gaza has reportedly created significant stress for Munir at home, forcing him to carefully weigh political, social, and religious implications before making any commitment. Over the past several weeks, Munir has held meetings with both military and civilian leaders from multiple Muslim-majority countries, seeking guidance and support as he navigates the pressure from Washington. Reports from Reuters indicate that Munir's diplomatic outreach included meetings with top officials from Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, and several other nations, reflecting the international sensitivity of the situation. Domestically, Pakistan's powerful Islamist parties are reportedly opposed to the idea of deploying troops to Gaza, warning that any participation could trigger political unrest and widespread opposition. Analysts caution that if Munir chooses to defy these parties, they could mobilize thousands of supporters, potentially sparking violent demonstrations that could destabilize Pakistan internally. Adding to the complexity, Pakistan recently banned a major and highly militant anti-Israel Islamist party in October 2025, showing the government's attempt to maintain control over radical factions within the country. In November 2025, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar reportedly stated that disarming Hamas is not Pakistan's responsibility, signaling caution and reluctance to become directly involved in Middle East conflicts. Experts warn that Pakistan's hardline factions could respond violently or with strong political backlash if Munir ultimately agrees to President Trump's Gaza deployment plan, heightening risks for the army chief. As of now, officials from Pakistan's military, the Foreign Office, and the White House have not commented on the Reuters report, leaving many questions about the country's position and potential commitments unanswered.
There is a risk of religious hardliners reacting negatively. It's very clear that groups like TLP and others are very opposed to Israel on the whole and to its policies in Gaza and so on. So if Asim Munir deploys troops to Gaza, it'll be very clear to these religious hardliners that this means a level of engagement with Israel. They'll be very unhappy, and I do fear that they could take to the streets. Pakistan has sought to um, weaken TLP by banning it recently and making it difficult to protest, but I think a decision like this could actually lead to a pretty significant mobilization in theory, which could make it more difficult for Pakistani security forces to put down or to limit these mobilizations. It could lead to violence, that which is not what I think that the military would like to see. We've seen what I would argue to be unprecedented changes to Pakistan's constitution that have resulted in what could best be described as the unbridled power of Asim Munir. And I think that it would be hard to imagine any time in Pakistan's history when you had an individual leader, an individual military leader with this type of clout.